Low, dark clouds shifted ominously across the sky. The night before, sometime between midnight and dawn, a blinding rain had drenched the plains of the Sekigahara. It was now past noon on the 15th of the 9th month of 1600. Though the typhoon had passed, now and then fresh torrents of rain would fall on the corpses and on Takezo's upturned face. Each time it came, he'd open and close his mouth like a fish, trying to drink in the droplets. It's like the water they wipe a dying man's lips with, he reflected, savoring each bit of moisture. His head was numb, his thoughts the fleeting shadows of delirium. So the book opens with the battle scene of just devastation of Musashi's side. And then this chapter in particular is called Little Bells. Each chapter is divided into different elements of nature. Book 1, Earth. Book 2, Water. Book 3, Fire. Book 4, Wind. Book 5, Sky. Book 6, Sun and Moon. Book 7, The Perfect Light. So it starts out, and this one is called Little Bells. So here we go. I'm going to read a little bit more. Images of his sister and the old villagers floated before his eyes. I'm dying, he thought without a tingle of sadness. Is this what it's really like? He felt drawn to the peace of death, like a child mesmerized by a flame. Suddenly, one of the nearby corpses raised its head. Takezo. The images of his mind ceased. As if awakened from the dead, he turned his head towards the sound. The voice, he was sure, was that of his best friend. With all his strength, he raised himself slightly, squeezing out a whisper barely audible above the pelting rain. Marahachi, is that you? Then he collapsed, laying still and silent. Takezo, are you really alive? Yes, alive, he shouted in a sudden outburst of bravado. And you? You'd better not die either. Don't you dare. His eyes were wide open now, and a smile played faintly about his lips. Not me, no sir. Grasping for breath, crawling on his elbows and dragging his legs stiffly behind him, Marahachi inched his way towards his friend. He made a grab at Takezo's hand, but only caught his small finger with his own. As childhood friends, they'd often sealed promises with this gesture. He came closer and gripped the whole hand. I can't believe you're all right too. We must be the only survivors. Don't speak too soon. I haven't tried to get up yet. I'll help you. Let's get out of here. Suddenly, Takezo pulled Marahachi to the ground and growled, Play dead. More trouble coming. The ground began to rumble like a cauldron. Peeking through their arms, they watched the approaching whirlwind close in on them. Then they were near. Lines of jet black horsemen hurtling directly towards them. The bastards, they're back, exclaimed Marahachi. Raising his knees as if preparing for a sprint, Takezo seized his ankle, nearly breaking it, and yanked him to the ground. In a moment, the horses were flying past them, hundreds of muddy, lethal hooves galloping in formation, riding roughshod over the fallen samurai. Battle cries on their lips, their armor and weapons clinking and clanking. The riders came on and on. Marahachi lay on his stomach, eyes closed, hoping against hope they would not be trampled. But Takezo stared unblinkingly upward. The horses passed so close they could smell their sweat. Then it was over. Miraculously, they were uninjured and undetected. And for several minutes, both remained silent in disbelief. Saved again, exclaimed Takezo, reaching his hand out to Marahachi, still hugging the ground. Marahachi slowly turned his head to show a broad, slightly trembling grin. Somebody's on our side, that's for sure, he said huskily. Yeah, those two were Musashi and Marahachi. They start out the book together, and they are woven into the book. It immediately shows you the difference between the two, subtle differences between the two. Takezo, which is Musashi, is immediately intrigued with his dreams, his thinking. You know, he's looking at the clouds and taking in the smells, the earth. So it opens with that, and then it briefly tells you about the two men. Well, I call them men, but I think they're like 16. They're very young, and they volunteer for this war. They go, and because this is what you did. There's not much going on in Japan at that time, so they all basically had to enlist. Here we go. Let's move forward a little bit. So they get up, right, and they start walking. Eventually, they walk for what seems days, trying to find a village or a house to heal. And they're walking, and they just basically think they're going to die. So here we go. I wanted you to come with me. We've always done everything together. But didn't your mother carry on something awful, yelling and telling everybody I was crazy and no good? And your fiance, Otsu, and my sister and everybody else crying and saying the village boys should stay in the village. Oh, maybe they had their reasons. We are both only sons. If we get ourselves killed, there's no one else to carry the family names. But who cares? Is that any way to live? They had slipped out of the village unnoticed and were convinced that no further barriers lay between them and the honors of battle. When they reached the Shimen encampment, however, they came face to face with the realities of war. They were told straight away they would not be made samurai, not overnight, or even in a few weeks, no matter who their fathers had been. To Ishida and the other generals, Takezo and Marahachi were a pair of country bumpkins, little more than children who happened to have got their hands on a couple of lances. The best they could wangle was to be allowed to stay on as common foot soldiers. Their responsibilities, if they could be called that, consisted of carrying weapons, rice kettles, and other utensils, cutting grass, working on the road gangs, and occasionally going out as scouts. Samurai? Ha, said Takezo. What a joke. A general's head. I didn't even get near an enemy samurai, let alone a general. Well, at least it's over. Now, what are we going to do? I can't leave you here all alone. If I did, I could never face your mother or Otsu again. Takezo, I don't blame you for this mess we're in. A couple of hours later, they were standing on the edge of a small plain, gazing out over a sea of reed-like miscanthus, battered and broken by the storm. No houses, no lights. There were lots of corpses here too, lying just as they had fallen. The head of one rested in some tall grass. Another was on its back in a small stream. Still another was entangled grotesquely with the dead horse. The rain had washed the blood away, and in the moonlight, the dead flesh looked like fish scales. All around them was the lonely autumn litany of bell ringing and crickets. A stream of tears cleared a white path down Marahachi's grim face. He heaved the sigh of a very sick man. Takezo, if I die, will you take care of Otsu? What are you talking about? I feel like I'm dying. Takezo snapped. Well, if that's the way you feel, you probably will. He was exasperated, wishing his friend were stronger so he could lean on him once in a while, not physically, but for encouragement. Come on, Marahachi, don't be such a crybaby. My mother has people to look after her, but Otsu, all alone in the world, always has been. I feel sorry for her. Takezo, promise you'll take care of her if I'm not around. Get a hold of yourself. People don't die from diarrhea. Sooner or later, we're going to find a house, and when we do, I'll put you to bed and get some medicine for you. Now stop all this blubbering about dying. A little further on, they came to a place where the piles of lifeless bodies made it look as if a whole division had been wiped out. By this time, they were callous to the sight of gore. Their glazed eyes took in the scene with cold indifference, and they stopped to rest again. Yeah, so Marahachi is, they're both wounded, they're both very hurt, right? And they both need to heal. They need to rest, but there's no, they can't really rest anywhere. They're in open fields, and there's just bodies everywhere. They trek along, and they finally find a girl. All of this has tremendous impact later. So you'll see that Marahachi is, he's kind of like he's not a coward, but he's more willing to give in to the easy road, the easy path, right? He's ready to die. He's like, just gonna give up. But he's, and Takezo, which is Musashi, knows that he's gonna heal. He just needs time, and he just wishes his friend was a bit stronger. So they find this girl. They see the girl. They kind of try to talk to her, and they do end up following her, leading to her house. That's how the chapter ends. She runs off, and she's got little bells attached to her, so you can hear her. but she's amongst the corpse, which they find kind of odd. So we'll get to the next chapter, which is the comb, which again leads to the foreshadowing of what these women do to the samurai, and how they are essentially shaped. And then it's oddly, the flowers come into play almost immediately as well.